From Hollywood.
Johnny Dollar.
Mr. Dollar, I want you to come over here right away.
What's that again?
I want you to come over here right away.
That's what I thought you said, but who is this and where's here?
This is Ellis P. Watkins, Mr. Dollar. You've heard of me, perhaps?
Yeah, I think so. Manufacturer, aren't you?
At the moment, that seems to be a matter of opinion.
You mean he wants me to tell him who the beneficiary should be?
That's right.
No, thanks.
Now, look,
You
Johnny.
look, Pat. I got tangled up in a family matter once before. I still have the scars to prove it.
Johnny.
Why doesn't Mr. Watkins pick his own beneficiary?
More like